Oh, it says we're live. We're live. I'm frightened by it all. Frightened by it all. Hello, people. How many people are here? 25? Is that what you said?
I see 25, but there could be more.
I don't have the actual stream up, so I don't see how many people are here, which is fine, I guess. I don't know, but so we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna do our intro. We've got a special guest that's gonna be with us for a little while tonight, and then we're just gonna roll with it. It's Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. That's how we do over here.
The notification just went out.
Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and just start the music, and then we will roll in.
All right.
Good evening, one and all, ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet. We are back once again for another episode of the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast, the podcast so honest it hurts. And welcome back to YouTube. We've been over on Twitch for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, I guess. But tonight we figured we'd come back on YouTube because everybody was bothering me to do that. So here we are. We may go back over to Twitch one of these days. But anyway, we've got a special show tonight. We've got a special guest with us. The tech news is not really hopping, but we got things to talk about. So first off, I want to say thanks to Zach for being here, Viper for being here, and then let's say hello to our guest this evening, Mr. Jon Rettinger. John,
what's going on? Thanks for having me, and welcome everybody to my bedroom.
Yes. Now, is that where the magic happens?
Hold on. That's my introduction. This is where no magic happens.
Well, when you have kids, I understand. I totally understand. So, we're just gonna do our thing, John. What's been going on with you here the past couple of days? You guys are under lockdown again.
Yeah. So Orange County has been making some news for the wrong reasons. So we're back on lockdown, but the content is still free flowing. News is still happening. Trying to find ways, probably like everybody out there, right, to adapt to the new normal, professionally and personally. Yeah.
It's definitely been an interesting, watching people on YouTube. Some people have done really well, and people who have reviews and how-tos and stuff like that of how to do live streaming, et cetera. People have done well. Other people have done well for other reasons and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely been different. So
this is a very unique time, not just for our industry, but for all. I mean, for a while, for 6 months, I was filming in my loft right outside that room with my family and kids. So it's been tough to find a way to make things work. But I think we're all fortunate to have work to be doing. And healthy, first and foremost. But it's been an interesting transition. Tech news is still doesn't stop, and certainly our jobs don't stop. I wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't making videos. So for my own sanity, it's been a nice outlet to have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, we're definitely fortunate for the fact that we can do our work from home. It's like the whole world changed and nothing for me changed. But it's like, I just was like, I'm still here in the converted garage, doing my thing. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting to see how that stuff's going. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be doing some streaming over on Amazon, which has really helped me kind of bridge the gap as well, and do some stuff over there. So that's been fun. But I mean, I guess one thing that I know Zach has a couple of questions. So Zach, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
I guess kind of expand more. First of all, thanks for being here, John.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
I guess expand more on because you normally have a team. I think about 5 or 6 people, correct?
We've got 4, including me, and then it'll be 5 in a couple weeks.
Okay, perfect. So you've gone from that to on your own. So more or less. I mean, so has the process of making content, besides being inside your home most of the time, which by the way I think has been really kind of cool. Like for example, you did that 360 camera video, and it was kind of cool seeing like, you know, okay, John has a backyard. Like I think we knew that you did, but it's kind of cool.
Stuff.
We thought you just had like gauzy curtains and leather chairs and stuff.
but
that's my red room.
How tough has it been, or like how have you guys adapted as a team from 5 or 6 to just John now?
You know, it's been hard. So, in all honesty, I mean, the videos that go up on my channel, I think we try to adhere to a certain aesthetic, which I think to my eye looks very good, and I wrongfully get all the credit for those videos looking good. I'm generally just like the talking monkey doing what I'm told. I work with people who are much more talented at different things than I am. And they're the ones who are filming and editing that make that look good. When I filmed myself, which was for the first like 5 years of my career, my videos were not very good looking. So it was tough to adapt to that process. So I've got a loft outside, and that's sort of where we were filming. But I also have 3 kids who are not in school. I've got a almost 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So filming became tough. My wife had to take the kids out of the house for a couple hours. Obviously, things are on lockdown. There's not really many places she could go. I would set up a camera, film myself. That's how it started. And I would have one of our directors kind of on a FaceTime watching and making sure I'm setting things up the way they want. And I'd send the footage to them. And if it was like a phone, I'd leave the phone outside. They'd come and get it, shoot their B-roll. We kind of patchwork it together. And then we moved from that to maybe having one of them come in my house with a mask far away and then film me. And then right before all the COVID stuff happened, I was about to sign a lease on a new studio. And then I ended up obviously waiting on that. And I just sort of pulled the trigger on it a few weeks ago. So we're now in a very open studio with nothing there, but only 1 or 2 of us at a time. So the last video that went up, our Model Y video, was the first video that we kind of shot in the studio, and there's nothing there you can see, which we just literally hung a Quasar on a wall. And we're like, well, there's our set. So it's been tough, you know, with the family to adapt. It's been tough from like a business standpoint, you know, to adapt. But like everything, right? Like we're flexible, we're malleable, we're in an industry that isn't very clearly defined, so we can kind of make our own definitions and sort of push up against those boundaries to find what works. And the audience has been really understanding. The worst comments that I got about working at home was that I look like on box therapy because I didn't get a haircut for like 3 weeks. I wore a hat all the time in my videos. You know, like, what do you discount on box therapy? I was like, it's quarantine, everything's closed, I can't get a haircut. So that's been my process of trying to sort of get through that.
So the team's still involved. It's just obviously from a distance now, is what you're saying, basically.
Yeah, you know, it was important to me that I didn't, as a business owner, everybody, as long as I could, keep their jobs at the salaries that they were accustomed to, right? You know, when you have people working for you, it's responsibility. And I tried to take that seriously, but I had to, you know, reevaluate how the whole business ran. You know, before this started, you know, I was talking about how March of this year was the worst revenue month I'd ever had in the history of any business that I run, whether it was Techno Buffalo times or the golden good times afterwards. You know, and so that's tough, right? You don't know if that's going to change. You have people relying on you for your salary. You know, I've got a family. It was just a very tough time that fortunately we're able to adapt and kind of move on from.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been interesting for me. Yeah. So June was 1 year since I like told my job that I was quitting, right? And it's been like, this is not where I hope to be a year after I sort of walked away from the job, but at the same time, like you never can guess what's going on. I mean, this year has been hard for me as well, and it's been one of those things where I think because of COVID, you know, I was the drama thing, the kind of like over the top stuff that I was doing before. I had kind of started to tire of it. B, it's just not something that I think people want to watch now, because you know there's enough like negative crap in the world. So why listen to somebody like rant and rave about tech, this or that? So yeah, it's been me trying to figure out a way to sort of transition my content as well, and trying different things and not really knowing if they're going to work, and not really knowing if they work now, if they'll actually work. It's been really like, it's been a moment where I've just been kind of depressed, honestly. Just like,
Jason, you made that transition at an interesting time. So you pretty much got like 6 months of like trying to be on your own ish before like the world ended.
right.
And then, so though you came in right when like the revenue numbers are usually at the worst, right? CPMs are their lowest, and you're sort of building up, right, to Q3, Q4 as you kind of get through that.
Right.
And then COVID hit. And plus, during this whole process, about 4 or 5 months ago, YouTube very quietly changed their algorithm.
Yeah.
And then on top of all of that, there was a period where like YouTube wasn't pushing tech content for like a good 2 months.
Yeah.
And everybody was down. So I mean, you've been hit from all sides. But I think the fact that you're still standing is a testament to the dedication. It's a lot easier to walk away and say that didn't work, as opposed to pushing through it.
Well, I appreciate that.
I've been doing this for 10 years. Like I've seen a lot of bad stuff over the years. Industry-wise, personal-wise, professional-wise, and that kind of stuff. And it's been hard, right? Like I had my time with Techno Buffalo. My videos were horrible, and the audience stagnated, and I got passed by a bunch of people. Like you go through those times, I think, for a reason. I mean, Jason, even you and I, and Zach too. Like this is the first time I've been on a podcast with you guys since we were all screaming at each other.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and look now. Like now we've all moved past it and gone through it, and I think that this time is still something is still being written. I will say, and I can share some sort of YouTube secrets here. I always get a bunch of questions like, hey, why are you changing your thumbnail and your title 17 times throughout the videos?
I asked you about that, remember?
Like the question I get all the time, and I get people on the outside. Yeah, Zach, you asked me. So here's the answer, and this has been a real big driver in pushing us, from a video that maybe would do 70,000 views to a video that maybe does 150,000.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is, I'm sure, Jason, you know this at this point now, but for the audience out there, when you put up a video, whoever you are, whether you're from Marquez to somebody just created a channel yesterday, YouTube will push out notifications gradually. Mm-hmm. Not everybody who subscribes to you or has notifications turned on necessarily gets it right away. And they'll push it out on the home feed gradually. And the home feed is where most of these videos come from. So they'll put a video up on the home feed, and you'll see how many people are clicking on it, how many people are watching it. The only two things you can control from that standpoint are the title and the thumbnail, right? Mm-hmm. And pretty close to real time, you can see how many people are watching your video. And then about 2 hours later, you can see a click-through rate, your CTR.
Right.
So if you go through and upload a video that, like, say, Jason, you think is amazing. It's, let's say, don't buy the iPhone 11 video. You put a lot of time into it. You think it's a good point. People should watch it. And you're like, crap, why is nobody watching this video? It's good. So at that point, you can change your title and thumbnail.
Yeah.
And YouTube is still pushing that out little by little. And you can find a combination that works better that people start clicking on. When people start clicking on it, then the watch time starts to matter. But you can sort of game it a little bit. And sort of learning those tricks over the years to get past these really hard times has been, both helpful and sometimes very discouraging when you think a really good video and then just nothing happened. Nothing can help it.
I got so obsessed with how often you were changing it. I started timing you over the course of a week. And I was like, why is he changing it at the 21-minute mark? It seems like the 21 or 22-minute mark.
So we're watching it in real time. So we're watching, our whole team is usually in a chat watching the real-time views. And we know where our threshold is. Mm-hmm. And if we drop, usually we'll give it 10 or 15 minutes just to see what happens. Mm-hmm. And that's why you usually see that 21 mark, 20 to 21. Then we'll start making changes. Sometimes usually it's a thumbnail or a title, and we'll start to see what happens. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the opposite happens, and you do one that's way worse than what you launched with, and then you can never get it back after that.
Yeah, I definitely have been doing some of that. So I'll have a couple of different thumbnail ideas, especially if I'm doing something that's atypical. And I'm still trying to figure out things like, will people click on the video if my face is in it versus not?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so I have little groups in my analytics that sort of track with face, without face, that kind of thing. But I do, the titles are the ones that matter the most for me. Like I've had some stuff where, the more sort of sensational title, which might have really got people going, last year or the year before, just wasn't drawing people in. So then I'd like, change a word or two.
Didn't you have one called Idiot Tax?
Yeah, there was one with that in there. Yeah. Oh, BMAX says he'd click on anything with my face. Oh,
what was the one that Michael Fisher? He was like, I'm not going to click this. I'm going to click this. He told in Vegas.
When I made a video about the Motorola Razr.
Oh yeah.
And how stupid it was, because they're going to charge us $1,500 for nostalgia. And he told me that he saw the thumbnail and he was just like, I'm not going to watch it. And then he was getting in his car to go run errands.
Yeah.
And by the time he sat down in the car, he hit play and just rage listened to it for his entire trip. So that's fine by me. I mean, but yeah, it's definitely, I mean, for me, it's all about patterns. Like, I'm still trying to figure out patterns. Like what kinds of videos can I do, and how should the pattern of when they're released and how they're released,
How do you gauge, Jason? How do you gauge success for video for you? Is it views? Is it thumbs up? Is it is there a sponsor in there? Is it revenue? How do you gauge a successful video?
I mean, this is going to sound like bullshit, but it's true. First, like, do I feel good about it? And do I feel like I did something good? I'm communicating something I want to communicate? But then after that, it's really, views is probably the thing. I want to watch. I want people to watch the video.
Sure.
And I have sponsors enough and other ways of getting income that I'm kind of like, it's kind of working out. It's not ideal, but it's working out. So I'm not really worrying about that as much. But at the end of the day, like, my goal for right now is to get to like 40, 50,000 views per video on average. And I was like at 30 something a year ago, and I'm down from that now. So it's like I gotta build it back up. So that's kind of the way that I watch and like just sort of take the temperature of it.
Yeah.
And YouTube has given you a lot more tools to, like, if you can look at the click-through rate after a couple of hours and see like, oh, the click-through rate is 3. That's not maybe I should change that up. And I've been doing little things like, for some videos that'll have longer legs, like review videos or something like that, I'll have a launch thumbnail and then a thumbnail for after 5 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And that actually worked really well for me on it. The video that's done the best for me the entire time that this has all been going on is a video that I made back in January on a gaming headset. It's like the most expensive gaming headset, and that's how I started. I made gaming headset videos, but I just did them every once in a while since things had been moving on. That video sat there at, like, I'm not kidding, 2,000 views for like 3 weeks. And then in March, right after everything happened, it started getting 3 and 4 and 5 views a day. 3 and 4, 5,000 views a day, to where now it's up over 125,000. And those are the kinds of videos that, like, at the time when I was like being sensational and trying to draw people in that way, it was so easy to make the video that would get the rage click. Like, I know if I do the video that's going to get the rage click, then by tomorrow I'll have 50,000 views, and by the end of the week I'll have X number or whatever.
Yeah. And
I could watch it happen. If it hit certain benchmarks in the first few hours, I knew what was going to happen with it. But that doesn't. I can't judge it at all now.
Yeah.
So.
Are you?
So yeah.
Do you feel like you're going to want to go back to that sensational style?
No. It was fun to do at the time, and I think it was something that was, people were enjoying watching it at the time, or loving, hating, enjoying watching it. I don't know, like, whatever it was, but I just ultimately, I think for some people can get on camera and they can play a character, and then they can switch that character off and be like them without the camera on. But honestly, like, this is like the way that I talk about tech is the way that I would talk about tech, like with somebody at my office if I was at work.
Yeah.
You know, and so this is just very much like me and the way I do things. And it got really toxic after a while. And toxic in such a way that it wasn't the kind of toxic where I was challenging people to think differently. It was the kind of toxic where they weren't hearing me anymore. Yeah. And so I'm slow. I've been slowly sort of moving away from that for probably, I mean, longer than the past 6 months. It's, you know, toward the end of last year, I started to move away. And like everything hasn't clicked in terms of like what the patterns are for the kinds of videos that I make. I want to get more audio stuff going because that's really where my passion is. And so I'm kind of trying to work those things in.
No, that makes sense. And I think everybody goes through that. I mean, there was a lot of times when I was running Techno Buffalo, when I was spending 80% of my time on editorial stuff and 20% on video. And the videos, I wasn't proud of the videos and I couldn't find what was going on. And like the channel just completely plateaued and people started making them more sort of cinematic style content. And I was really slow to adapt to that. And then I got left out. You know, then I was missing the trends and I couldn't figure out why videos that were hitting before, you know, weren't hitting now. And kind of like you, it's like a self-realization, right? Like something has to change. I either have to be all in on one or all on the other. I can't be half in on both because that's nothing good is going to happen there.
Right.
I mean, so I can relate, obviously different scenarios, but I can relate to that feeling of like, why isn't this working? You know, I've tried X, Y, Z like a million times and it used to work. Like what's changed? And what I've realized a lot is that what changed was, you know, YouTube itself changed. The barriers to entry are so low. And by that, I mean, anybody with a camera can upload and make a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And YouTube deprioritizing the subscription page leveled the playing field like nobody's business.
Yeah.
So I've got 1.6 or 7 million subscribers, but I've been around for 10 years. So I'd imagine 60% of them subscribed 6 years ago, right? They're probably not active anymore, not into tech. They just haven't unsubscribed. Right. So somebody with a new channel that has 1,000 subscribers that people are clicking on that video right away can get more traction than somebody established like me and like you. And that was increasingly frustrating. And not that I wasn't frustrated at like the creators who are doing it. It was more of like, crap. Like I feel like I'm being penalized for being around so long.
Right.
So it became really hard to sort it out. And that was sort of right around the time when I started working with John Morrison and Austin Evans and that Sun Squared and sort of trying to see what they were doing because they'd been so successful where I had gone so wrong, you know, for a while. And seems like what you're doing now, you know, working with Zach and Viper, making yourself more accessible. You know, for somebody who, you know, was part of that Can You Trust series, you know, I didn't feel like you were somebody I could talk to, right? You know, it was set up to be adversarial by default, right?
Yeah. Even though I tried to be like relatively even-handed overall, but yeah, it was sort of a shock and awe. Like, is he really doing this kind of thing?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it was set up by nature. So it's hard to change what people expect from you, right? Like it's tough to do, but it's definitely not impossible. And I respect a lot how open you are about the journey. And that's something that I've tried to be as well, because it's much easier to be like, everything's great, guys. Like, things are perfect. I am super happy with how things are going. And that's not the case.
No.
So I give a ton of respect and credit for somebody who's open about the bad and negative side of what we do.
Definitely. All right, let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
Number one, Mr. Rettinger, is it possible for you to move your mic closer to your mouth?
I can. That is definitely possible. How about this?
Beautiful. Absolute fabulous.
All right.
Number two.
Yes.
I want to ask you about the important or not important, whatever you might think about the 120 hertz refresh rate. Now, all of us tech nerds, we're excited about this stuff. Oh my God, 120 hertz refresh rate. We need it. Me personally, I think it's overrated as a big deal. But what does Jon Rettinger think about the 120 hertz refresh rate?
Listen, I am pro anything over 60. And I know it comes down to an iPhone debate, right?
Yeah.
Like, my iPhone looks fine. I don't need any better than that. This is great. Apple did it for a reason. Apple knows what I want is generally the argument that you hear when it comes to anti-higher refresh rate. But even used a phone, which is such a wonderful mess, like the Pixel 4 and the 4 XL, even just at 90 hertz, like, well, this just looks better. Like, it just looks better. So I am pro faster refresh rates, but I'm pro giving users choice. Like what OnePlus has done. If I don't want it and I want to scale it down, then great, give me that option. That's what sort of the mobile experience I think should be about, letting people customize to some extent their experience. So I'm for it if it provides even one or two consumers something that they are looking for. I think then it should be something that's offered. And I mean, at this point, Apple charging what the prices they're charging with very inferior tech is laughable.
Whoa. You not hear that right, John? Oh, man.
Gotta get some sound effects there.
Yeah.
Fired on the podcast.
There it is.
Oh, man.
You can love Apple. And I feel like I'm channeling my inner Jason Lewis here. You can love Apple while still being honest about the failures, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're not, then I think you're just being an asshole. Like we're just being blinded. You're just being blinded by the shiny Apple beauty, right? You gotta call a company out.
I'm taking that as a sound clip for the future. Just so you know. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. To me, I totally agree. I mean, on one hand, Apple does what they do really well, and I think that's what people really like about it. However, especially for those of us who know more of what's possible for tech, it gets frustrating. I mean, I kind of don't care one way or the other about 120 hertz for myself personally. Like I'm using the LG V60 right now. It's 60 hertz. It's 1080p. It's a huge screen. It doesn't bother me, but I think that there's a lot of what happens is when people start arguing in absolutes, it's like, no, has to be the way it is, or has to be. Then you're not having any kind of real conversation. You're just kind of going back and forth, and throwing comments over your Android wall or your Apple wall or whatever. And I'd love to have more of that conversation of like, okay, so Apple doesn't do things until they're ready to do them, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been using iOS 14, and I think the widgets as they're working right now are really pretty cool, and they're definitely enhancing my iPhone experience. But for me, I'm not like comparing that to my Android experience, because the Android experience has always been different, and so even if Android had widgets before, it's not a feature measuring contest, I suppose.
Nobody's whipping out their features and throwing them on the table.
Yeah. So I agree. Like, there are things about Apple that have made me mad in the past, and then I've taken a lot of heat for turning around and being then positive about Apple, and there's lessons that you learn along the way. I probably could have approached it slightly differently and not made as many people mad. I probably could have, there are definite things that I know now that I didn't know then that I could do differently and have that same conversation. But I don't know. I mean, is there a point where Apple has to meet a certain minimum requirements compared to everybody else for us as tech enthusiasts, I guess, to still care?
I think that's an excellent point. So whatever, the iPhone 11 Pro came out, let's say 9 months ago. There weren't that many phones at that time, right? End of 2019 that had the higher refresh. The Pixel had just come out. It was 90 hertz, but that was still a new-ish technology. Right. It's understandable, if maybe frustrating, that it wasn't on the iPhone 11, but okay, I get it. Now, if you're looking at phones that cost $1,100, $1,200, I think there is a barrier to entry. Now, I think I can see what Sonny Dixon thinks. Apple doesn't care. I think there's a lot of truth to that. People are going to buy iPhones regardless. And we're probably yelling into a vacuum at this point about features we need to have or want to have. Because quite frankly, and in all honesty, no matter what they do or don't do, we're all going to buy one. Right? Because of what we do and career-wise.
Yeah. And that's the thing. People are like, I can't believe you bought it. You said you weren't going to buy it. I'm like, well, I mean, I said I wasn't going to order it on pre-order night.
What about that? What about that line of thinking, John? When it comes to it seems like a really legitimate information or rumor about the charger not being installed. So I just want to expand on this a little bit. So there seems to be two different camps. You know, people saying, well, everybody, quote unquote, everybody has tons of chargers sitting around. So the block, and then the other camp saying, no, we don't. And then I brought forward, and I think a few other people also brought forward the talking bit about the safety aspect and the legal liability possibly there, and how do you get around that? You include a charger. So that was my theory, my thinking on that. What is your thought process on that? Because we all know that Apple doesn't make their choices based on what the tech, the nerds and the enthusiasts want. It's more or less on the basic public or the everyday tech buyer. So how do you feel about
So I mean, if this does happen, which it does seem like there's a lot of credence to it, Apple's going to get on stage and say we're reducing e-waste. There's 400,000 tons of waste every year. We're committed to the environment. And we're going to reduce our packaging, blah blah blah. That's going to be the argument.
And here's our brand new wireless charger.
Yeah, we fixed air power.
Yeah.
So there's going to be that side of it, and there's no disputing that there is a lot of waste. And I've been thinking about this for some reason a lot. And I think this is an instance where like our opinions are jaded, right? Like I'm looking around here and I can see 6 chargers just like tilting my head to the left. But I think that we're probably in the minority. I would assume people generally get new phones, and they tend to use accessories. Maybe you've got a 5-watt charger from your iPhone 7. You're looking forward to an 18 or 22 that comes in the box for fast charging. So I think I'm on the side of the fence where I would prefer it not to happen, but I think it's probably on the wrong side of what's going to happen. I heard a solution, and I think there's no way Apple does this, but when you buy an iPhone, you get a choice. Do you want the charger in the box, or do you want a $10 gift card?
Right.
Apple Store, $20, whatever it might be. And then people probably buy something more than $20. Apple's happy, they make money, and it's a very elegant style solution. I do not think that's going to happen. I think your point about safety and people buying cheap discount chargers is actually very valid. And actually not a point that I had considered actually. And I think
the only reason I brought that up is because when I worked in the industry, when I sold cell phone accessories, I would go to like a Bell or a Telus or Rogers store. They're the big 3 up here. And I would go for a launch, and I would see people come in and get the newest iPhone, the iPhone 8, the iPhone 7. And then they would turn around and say, okay, what cheap cases do you have? What cheap cables do you have? So they'll spend $500-$600 on the iPhone, buy it outright, or sign the contract, or whatever it is. And then they'll turn around and they'll spend the bare minimum on a case, or ask for the free screen protector, or go across in the mall to one of those little carts that sells hundreds of cases from China that probably cost that guy 5 cents a piece. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they'll spend the money on the device, but then they'll cheap out on everything else. And then how many times have you gone to a gas station and they've got these bins full of these colorful chargers? Holy fire hazard, Batman.
Yeah. So Zach, let's follow that through, right? So let's follow that through. So people go buy their new iPhone and they buy a discount charger, your gas station charger. And let's say 0.5%, there catches a fire that happens. Who's getting blamed for that fire? The discount charger or Apple?
Apple. Without a doubt.
The headline's going to be Apple, because they're going to say, because the liability should be with Apple for including that, so that doesn't happen. So Apple can say, we gave that to you. There shouldn't be a fire. I mean, that's the way. That's my thinking about it.
Yeah, that's my thinking too. It seems like it's a bad PR waiting to happen.
Especially when today's the day that everybody can collect their $25 for that class action lawsuit for Apple slowing down the phones. It's like, I think when you're Apple or anybody who's in like that echelon of success in your industry, you're responsible for everything that happens with your product, regardless of what the minutia of the situation might be. And so for me, like, I think about it, and Beth had this charger socialism thing up here, which I think is, maybe not redistribution of chargers, but to me, I keep thinking of it this way. Like, Apple wants to grow their customer base. They're selling inexpensive phones for the first time. They've got a wide range of phones that you can choose from. It makes sense to me that you would want to sell. You would want to sell your product like the person who was buying it for the first time, right? I mean, that's part of what I love about buying a piece of technology is, getting it out of the box and it feels fresh and new and that kind of thing. And if I have to like go buy a charger because they decided not to put it in the box, that to me, and it's that and the headphones. Taking the headphones out of the box it just enrages me because I haven't been able to get down to the real numbers, but I know that 60% of people who listen to music or anything on their phone use wired headphones. I would have to guess that the percentage of people using those wired headphones are using the headphones that come with the phone. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is putting headphones in the box, but Apple is a company that, the iPhone is the direct lineage is the iPod, which was all about music. And they make a ton of money from Apple Music, and it's all integrated into their ecosystem. And so they might not be the best headphones in the world, but I always got the impression that Apple wanted to encourage people to have access to things that maybe they wouldn't. Like the whole Steve Jobs 1,000 songs in your pocket kind of thing. And so taking away the headphones says, well, if you can't afford our AirPods, then, good luck.
No, I think that's fair. And Nintendo did this, I believe, with the new 3DS. Pulled the chargers out. And what I find interesting, it's just, I don't know. I think as us in the US maybe don't think about it, but Apple makes a lot of their money not from the first time they sell the phone. It's from the second and third life that phone has.
Right.
That goes to developing countries. So to sell a product second generation where Apple's, they've already recouped that cost, that R&D cost, that's all profit, where all of that comes in to not include a charger. And you look at maybe outside of the US where maybe there's less access to chargers and some in developing countries. I think there's a lot of potential problems that Apple's opening up. Now, I would assume that they have a solution for this, that there's some way that they will get around this where people can get a charger, or you go to a store, or order, whatever. I'd assume there's going to be some transitional step behind this. But It's a trend Apple's been following. The first iPhone came with a dock in the box.
Yeah,
I remember that,
yeah, and you see this thing slowly start to filter down and go away. I firmly believe that Apple as a company, and this is kind of a gross analogy, is like our farts smell delicious. Like everything we do is wonderful. In their mind, they're like, we are curing the world of mobile waste by doing this. Yeah, it'll save us money, but we are curing the world of one of its ills. Look at us. And they're guaranteed they're going to use some like courage word again.
Yeah.
What about on the flip? What about on the flip side of creating waste? So now you're individually packaging chargers, and you got paper. So I'm not against it. I completely agree with there's too much e-waste and this and that. I mean, like we said, we can all four of us here. We can look around our rooms here and find probably tons of stuff. But like I said. How are they going to do this? I want to understand how they're going to, like, if it's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to think there's going to be something other than like, hey, we'll sell you a charger. Like, I got to just assume that there's going to be something else.
I think there's a better chance of I keep on saying AirPods, but the AirPods, the ones they put in there right now, of not being there. And the only reason I say that, and I know it enrages Jason, is because they've already taken out the headphone jack. So why not just take that extra step and,
Now they took out the headphone jack, and then they took out the headphone jack, and then a couple of generations later, they took out the dongle.
Yeah.
And, so now they're lightning headphones. But, there is that pattern of, I don't know what their margins look like and how, like, I'm sure that minor changes like this in the macro in Apple's world equal like hundreds of millions of dollars or something like that, because it's just they sell so many devices, and once you take away, this is taking 5 cents out of the box for us in terms of packaging it. So we're making that 5 cents over however many sales we're making. I see the economics of it, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Smartphones are changing overall. Like our relationship to smartphones, how we think about smartphones. I forget I think that more than 80% of the people in the United States have a smartphone now, of some kind. And so they're becoming more of a commodity than a sort of luxury or lifestyle good. So people are kind of, it's just really interesting how the relationship is changing, and how companies like Apple are trying to leverage that relationship. So I just see them making business moves with good explanations.
I'm going to make a prediction. I'm putting this out there, exclusive on the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. I'm going to say that when you order your phone, you will have the option to pay extra for a charger in the box, or a charger added with it. Like you can get your phone engraved or your iPad engraved, right? They have to do something. They have to give an option to buy it from them. And then I think they'll do it at the point of sale is the best time to make that sale.
And do you think they maybe use a year's worth of data to see how many chargers actually went through it and go, okay, iPhone 13 or whatever they call it will definitely not have or have?
I think so.
Because go ahead.
No, I think that's how I think that's the only way that I can come up with that makes sense. Maybe they have another logical, step through it, but I think that's the only way that makes sense. So they can say, we gave people the choice of having a charger or not. You elected not to. Our hands are clean of liability from your, really crappy gas station charger. Go off and charge.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea also of like offering them the charger or like a $20 gift card to the Apple store, because Samsung does the same thing. If you order from Samsung's website,
absolutely,
you get like 150 Samsung bucks or whatever, and that you're spending $200 to get like that package that you want of the wireless charger and all that stuff. So Samsung's making money on top of what they're already making because you bought the phone. So I could see Apple sort of adopting that and having it both ways. But I don't know. I mean, Kayvon brings up a good point here. The right to repair discussion sort of exists around the fringes. Like it's like that uncle that no one wants to talk about. When it comes to Apple, it's like, oh yeah, Uncle Joe over there, he's not quite right, but we try not to talk about him. Like the right to repair thing is very strange, and it's a good point. If Apple allowed for third parties to repair their phones and their other devices, then that would reduce e-waste because people could use them for longer. I mean, that seems logical to me, but I understand Apple's argument for locking things down. Once again, they're in that beautiful catch-22 space where it's like, this helps us here and it helps us here, and we can say it's about this when it's also about this. It's like we make more money, but we also can provide a more, I guess, reliable experience.
Yeah,
with our.
Like I said, taking a charger out of the box is a whole other extreme, because there will be people that are buying the iPhone for the very first time and they might not have chargers laying around the house. And we know that most of these phones don't come with a full charge anyway. So number one, you are selling a phone without a charger in the box. The phone is probably coming at maybe 50 to 70% charge. So they're going to open up their iPhone when they get home or for Christmas, whatever. And my iPhone has 50% charge. And what? There's no charger in the box. Ooh, I don't. That just does not look good for Apple, especially when everybody else is putting a charger in the box for their phones. I don't know. I don't see it happening. But Apple is they're courageous, though. Who knows?
they do have courage. Like there's that whole Svengali marketing thing that they can do. It just makes me it makes me both, because I've worked in marketing and stuff, and I look at what they're doing. I used to teach people Steve Jobs' style of presentation. As part of, I taught like business presentation and stuff like that. And I used to teach people Steve Jobs because he was so good at using the visuals that he had to help tell his story, as opposed to like he's talking but everything's on the screen. And a lot of people don't understand that. Nobody wants to read your PowerPoint. So, and he revolutionized like that whole kind of speaking by doing what he did. So I admire them on that level a lot. But on another level, it's just, it's kind of like the Peter Parker conundrum. Like with great power comes great responsibility. But I don't know who they have a responsibility to, because, they make smartphones and computers. So at the end of the day, people like Louis Rossmann will, blow their top off their heads talking about this stuff. But I guess there are other choices that could be made. Yeah, if you're somebody who cares about it, that's the other argument is like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. It's like, well, that sounds good and courageous and everything else, but when your entire family has iPhones and iMessage and FaceTime, and that is a big part of your family communication, it's kind of hard to be like, well, I don't agree with Apple and how they're doing their marketing or whatever. I don't like the non-right to repair, so I'm going to buy a Samsung phone. And then you're totally shut out. I don't have any friends, so iMessage doesn't matter to me. Like, I had to ask some of the students when I was teaching, I had to ask some students, like, why do you care about iMessage so much? And they were like, oh, well, you can have like all these people on the same chat. I'm like, you can't do that otherwise? They're like, no, it's not the same. You can't really do it. I'm like, okay. I did not know, but okay. It makes sense. It makes sense. So Apple's always had those kind of like those killer apps that keep people in their space. Apple will forever be like probably one of the most fascinating companies / phenomenons of this modern time. Like when we look back at it, it's gonna look really weird.
Only Apple could we talk about a charger in the box, right? I think what's crazy is that as Apple's going to go with the charger, the other companies are certainly going to follow. Samsungs and LGs. That's just going to be the new norm, right? So the days of getting the free charger, like getting free headphones, is going to be a thing of the past very soon.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Quick question. PS5. What you think about it, baby?
Oh, it's beautiful looking, hey?
That's I know it, right? And it's so beautiful. Oh my Lord.
Listen, I like the transition. I'm very curious to see the pricing of the PS5. I have so as a fan that likes the game, like I'm super stoked about it. I think Sony is going to get killed in the pricing department, and I've got reasons to back it up.
Ooh, okay.
Because of things they said in the past year, right? The last couple of weeks about value.
There's that. So Sony's business as a whole, and this is maybe like the business I can't get out of my own head, as a whole is not that great, right? Sony's got cameras, sensors. They don't even make their own TVs anymore. They're LG panels.
Right.
And they have headphones and PlayStation, right? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Microsoft, I'm got to check on their market cap. I believe is the GDP of most developing nations.
Yeah.
If I were Microsoft and say this, I have a console that I have to win, right? We lost the last gen because we pushed stupid Kinect, but we won before against a PS3 because Sony priced it at $600. What do? This console is going to be on the market for say 10 years. I think they have the budget, and they've put aside to take an absolute bath on the Xbox Series X. And if I were Microsoft, if I was in charge, I would say I will take a $300 loss on every console sold. I make money back in licensing and games. We have the market cap. Would they write off, was it $2 billion for Nokia?
Yeah.
they could write off a loss and absorb it much easier and quicker than Sony ever could. Also, hey, Renee Ritchie.
It's your second favorite Canadian.
Ever could. And if there's an itch of business sense in Microsoft, and if they're committed to the Xbox platform, you take that loss, you take that 4 cents hit on your stock, and you ground Sony into the ground.
You are vicious. Now, why is it when they revealed the look of the PS5, the first thing I thought was, I have to have this. And the second thought was, I can't wait to see what Jonathan Morrison and Jon Rettinger do with videos on because I can already see the sweeping,
That's John Morrison, man. I just try to do a good impression.
Yeah, the 360 dolly shot.
But it looks like it's a beautiful looking. It's a beautiful looking device. Though.
It's a beautiful looking device, whereas the Xbox Series X is like a refrigerator.
But that's kind of been the charm. There's a charm in both design languages, right?
Absolutely.
The PS4 was angular and sort of modernist looking, and that was Sony sort of moving the look of it forward. The Xbox One looked like a Betamax from 1982, right? But that's their thing. Their thing, and they're sticking to it. And I like the idea of the Series X as kind of like this rectangular. They're sort of making some move toward saying this is like a computer. So I see where they're going with all that stuff. The one thing to me, and I have both systems. I've had both systems for a couple of generations. I've always been a PlayStation guy, and it's always ended up being because of the exclusives.
Yes.
I didn't care about like the dude bro exclusives that Microsoft had. I didn't care about Halo or any of those things. I didn't care about it. I wanted to be able to play this last generation we had Last of Us in the PS4 generation. Like that's my favorite game of all time. If I had missed that because I didn't own the console, I don't know, my life would be less.
Exclusives, I think, ultimately sell consoles, certainly. But I think for the swath of people who are like, I don't care, I just want a next-gen console. I want to play Madden. I want to play whatever 2K. And most games are going to be cross-platform anyway. I think that's where you're going to see a difference, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But for folks that, want to play the Miles Morales Spider-Man, like the PS5 is going to sell like crazy.
Yeah.
And I love that we're at like the precipice of new consoles, right? This never happened. It's not just like a faster version of something else. It's not a pro version. Like this is a new freaking console, which is awesome and amazing. And I think the quality of games in like a year are going to be sick and ridiculous. I can't wait for them. I'm going to buy both because I want to have both of them.
Because he can.
It's not an argument for me either. I mean, I'm gonna have both.
Yeah.
Like I rarely play games on the Xbox One X, but I have it. My daughter plays games on there more than I do.
My kids are on my Xbox more than I am.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me. Like you mentioned cross-platform, and I think cross-platform is going to be the big thing because I've been playing a lot of Warzone. Call of Duty Modern Warzone. I never thought I'd play a Call of Duty title at all, but here I am. And the cross-platform aspect of it is potentially like what is going to define the next generation of consoles. The fact that you can play with anyone. And I just think that the multiplayer world is going to open up to a lot of people who maybe... Yeah. I remember when PS4 started and I first started playing multiplayer games, I was kind of like, I'm confused by this. All these things are hard, but now it's much easier to just like get on something and hook up. And so I think that I love thinking about like near future science fiction stuff, like going to school in a virtual world. Like, I honestly think that, especially given where we are right now, we could be in a situation where kids could start going to school using their console or their smartphone or their PC or their Mac or whatever as their window into the classroom. And virtual reality would have a reason to exist. And it would be really cool. I mean, I can see those things, and it's just fascinating to me when you look at the consoles as they're coming out now, and they're almost off the shelf PC parts, and of course they're specialized, and Sony's specialized their stuff, but it's like you recognize the names of the processors and the GPUs and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see where it can go.
Yeah, I agree. And assuming everything goes according to plan, I think we're going to have information really soon. I mean, there are rumors that PS5 pre-orders were going to go up yesterday.
Yeah, man, what happened with that? Oh,
I know.
I had to figure on the button, man.
I saw Viper figured out on Twitter. I'm going, well, I'm not ready for this.
Damn it. Like, wait, it's July.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not until November, is it? I mean,
well, we don't know.
I actually went to the Best Buy and waited in line outside the store to get my PS4. Like,
dude, me too. I waited outside 8 hours to get the PS4 because I didn't pre-order like an idiot.
I haven't owned a console since the PS1, so this is really exciting for me. Okay, so like I've been a PC gamer like here and there, and my kids and I we play like those retro systems here. So we have like the PlayStation Classic, we got the Nintendo Classic, we got the Super Nintendo Classic. So they've been playing the games that I grew up on, and then we watched the Sony thing, and our heads all exploded. And I said to my wife, we're asking Santa for this for Christmas for all of us, for all three of us. So we're really excited. Yeah.
Dear Santa, PS5.
Yeah. We're getting the whole thing, man.
I love that you put Renee up there, by the way, who I think is one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Yeah.
And one of the most talented dudes on the internet. So
yes,
thank you, Renee, for joining us here.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Most definitely. In fact, going back to the conversation that we were having about like, and this is like no joke. Where do I want to take my channel? Like, what kind of stuff do I see myself doing? I look at Renee and how he focuses on what he does and what he brings to the table, and then like the transition that I watched you make into the cinematic thing, and how well that worked for you, and the way that you're telling stories with your videos. Yeah. I mean, some of the videos that you've made over the past couple of years have been like mini documentaries.
Yeah.
Just really cool, like the Apple history one that you did, and they've been really, really cool. And I love storytelling, and I love like quality that, there's just a quality to it that you can appreciate. It's intellectually there's quality, and then also in the execution there's quality. And like Renee, yourself, I mean, there's people all over YouTube who do this. There's this guy Nerd Writer who I used to watch all the time, who did video essays about movies and different kinds of things, and he was just really smart and made really smart videos that were visually interesting. So yeah, I look at what you guys are doing, and I'm thinking like that's a destination for me. I mean, I'm still like, my videos do better if I just sit here at the desk in front of the camera with no B-roll. but I know that there's a way to sort of do that, to do more than that, and I'm just not there yet. So I'm like watching you guys who've been doing it for a while, and Renee with his journalism experience. I've been so happy to see someone with, like, not that people who cover tech aren't journalists or don't have journalistic credentials or anything like that, but Renee's the real deal. He's been covering Apple for.
Approach. I mean, it's a different approach.
Yeah. He's been covering this stuff forever, and he knows like the way that he's transitioned to video from like the written word. It's just really interesting to see, because it's still giving you the same amount of content, but just in a visual form. And I don't think there are very many people making that kind of journalistic coverage of tech out in the space right now. So I really enjoy it.
Renee is so fired. This dude about to hit 100,000 subscribers twice in 1 year.
Speaking of numbers, we got 133 of you guys here watching us, guys and gals and people, whatever you identify as. That went wrong. Thanks for being here. all of you fine souls. 137 souls here right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So John, did you just recently purchase a Tesla, or have you had a Tesla for a while?
I had a Model X before, and my lease ran out. So I did a 2-year lease on a Model 3.
Oh.
And I had an S before that. So I've been driving electric for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then who knows after the 2 years, but I mean, they have that Cybertruck. I was at the launch event. I was like, this is a joke. This isn't the real car. Ha, ha, ha. And they're going to roll out the real truck. And now the more I look at it, I don't know if maybe I'm just like a falling victim to the Steve Jobs-esque marketing. But I'm like, I don't know. Cybertruck's not looking too bad to me anymore.
But then you posted a picture. Then you posted a picture of the new Bronco yesterday. So it makes me go.
I love that new.
It looks good, eh?
I want a truck so badly, or something truck, and I have no reason for it. I have like, I don't haul anything. I'll haul like bagels from Costco. I mean, like, there's no reason to get a truck. I don't live where it snows, but I really want one. That new Bronco's gorgeous. New F-150 looks nice. I'm like,
you've got the beard for a truck. I think a truck would look good on you. There you go.
Listen, I got to get a little more flannel. I'll come visit you up north.
You gotta put on like 30 pounds as well. That's
I'm getting there.
Oh Lord. John, you order the Cybertruck?
I have one on order, but it's like $100. It's $100.
Yeah.
Totally refundable. So I have an order down.
Mine's there too.
I like the Cybertruck like from the go because Blade Runner is like one of my top 5 favorite movies.
You have to like it.
And I just was like, this is like out of my dreams. Like it's so cool looking. It looks so impractical. It looks half done, but yet it
totally right. It looks unrendered. Like you see a picture, you're like, oh, that like it's that CGI picture's not done rendering yet.
It's like the 8-bit truck.
Yeah.
It's just like
I don't want to kill the podcast or anything like that, but we're at the 60-minute mark, and I know John told us he had a sort of limited availability because of young ones. John, do you still have more time with this, or
I got a few more minutes. I'm having fun with you guys.
Okay, awesome,
cool.
Awesome.
So you just wanted to like have an out.
No, usually I put my kids in the bath around 4:30 to 5. We have dinner at 6, and they're asleep by 7:30. Like a hard number, but we'll go to bed a few minutes
on the occasional Tuesday that we don't have shows. Like it's only happened a few times. I still disappear down here. Like I have a show to do, honey.
Yeah. I see in the back you're probably brushing up on your computer skills.
My kids kill me at this now. I made the mistake of giving them instructions on how to do this, and I used to be really good at Mortal Kombat, and now my son kicks my ass. My 8-year-old son.
That's the circle of life, man.
Yeah.
But you know what? I do not let up on Mario Kart. I own them at Mario Kart, and I will not let that go.
My daughter.
Oh, go ahead, Jason.
My daughter, whenever Injustice 2 came out, she loved that game, and she was watching videos and studying. I think she was probably like 12 or 13 years old at that time, and I would play with her, one-on-one. And at first I was never very much of a fighting game person anyway, but I would still just beat the crap out of her.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks went by and I couldn't beat her, and I was just like, this is too demoralizing. You have to play online.
Wow.
So yeah, it is the circle of life. I mean, what were you gonna say, Vite?
I was gonna say, I know John made like the transition, like for 6 months out of the year he using iPhone, and then the other 6 months out of the year he using Android. Are you on your Android or your iPhone cycle right now?
I'm on so I switched. I think it was June 1st I went to the iPhone cycle.
Okay.
So I'm on the iPhone right now. I'll be on the iPhone through whatever iPhone they call the next one for a few months, and then I'll switch over to the Android world for 6 months. It just made things easier. Like it's clean, and it's just nice to have like the option to use both and sort of force that to use both.
Let's talk about names, because I know there hasn't been a lot of talk about that. So I guess we're all pretty confident that it's going to be called the 12 this, 12 that. With 13, because of people's things about the number 13, do you think they still call it iPhone 13? No, you don't think so?
No, I don't think so. But Apple, who knows? Maybe it'll go the way of iPhone 9, right? Like,
Yeah.
could have been an iPhone 9.
Yeah. I think that when they started the iPhone, they had no conception of what it was going to become, so they didn't set up the naming convention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they've been struggling ever since to be like, well, do we go with numbers? Do we, is the iPhone 10 an iPhone 10, or is it an iPhone X? Is it, whatever? I don't know. I agree they won't go to 13, but I don't know where they go after that.
I think they want to go like, this is the iPhone Pro, this is the iPhone Pro Max, this is the whatever iPhone R, and it's just the 2020 version of that. But like, no one's gonna like. There's so much confusion. They did it with the iPads. Remember? Like, it's the iPad. Is it the new iPad? Like, I don't know. What's the newest one that just came out?
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's the iPad Air, or is it just the iPad, or is it the iPad Pro, or is it the cheaper iPad? I don't know which one it is. Like, how do you explain?
You never know what happened. You never know what happened. But we got breaking news on the podcast. We have breaking news on the podcast. So, Ross Young tweeted out that the Galaxy Fold 2 will indeed be announced at Unpacked in a few weeks. And I am very excited about the Galaxy Fold 2.
Who tweeted that out?
Ross Young.
Interesting.
There's been a lot of like back and forth on whether or not Samsung will indeed announce this Fold 2 at the Unpacked event. Now he says that they're going to announce it at Unpacked, but it probably won't be released until October. So John, what are your thoughts? I know you are a big fan or are a big fan of the original Fold. And what are your thoughts on the upcoming successor?
I am a huge fan of the Fold. Huge.
Did he just look over at it?
I am a huge fan of the Fold, and I think the logical next step for what the Fold can be is the phone that it was meant to be, right? You know, presumably, bigger screens on the inside, on the outside, a really true 2-in-1. And in order to get to that point, you have to have the missteps of the first couple generations, right?
Right.
So I always bought into, like, I don't care that the Fold wasn't perfect. I didn't expect it to be perfect. I wanted to support a company that's trying something new to get to the one that's made for everybody. And I think the 2 will get us there. Yet if the rumors end up holding true, it needs a bigger inner screen, it needs the ultra thin glass, it needs a less weird outer screen. And I'm in.
Yeah. I was very critical because
just a little bit.
Well, my whole thing was that they were selling like a product that wasn't made to last for a premium price. And I know that, and everybody was like, well, regular people aren't the market for this phone. It's like, but I maybe it's the Democrat in me. Shouldn't everybody shouldn't these devices be for everybody if they so desire, So I got frustrated by that. But
I agree. I agree with you, actually. Samsung could have solved their entire problem with the Fold from the recall if they just would have called it the Galaxy Fold Developer Edition.
Oh, yeah.
That would have fixed every problem, every issue. They wouldn't have had to have a recall. It's Developer Edition. Try it. Don't peel off the screen. It's your fault. It's a Developer Edition. It's not for everybody. It's expensive. Try
Way to go, Marquez.
That would have fixed all the problems.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Marquez was like the first person to peel that thing off there, and which of course means that it's going to be huge news immediately. So many people follow everything that he tweets and does. So it was just really, but I guess I wasn't shocked. I was at the Unpacked event when they announced it, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And I was sold until they said, and it's $1,980.
You recorded a response. I remember that was in your video. The whole crowd went, oh.
There was the audible groan in the crowd. But right now, you can get a Galaxy Fold renewed on Amazon for like $1,160. And I've said if it gets down below 1,100, I'm gonna get one.
Why don't you just email Escobar? You know you'll get one like that.
Oh, Lord. I'm glad you guys brought up MKBHD, though, because there have been some flack on Twitter, some chatter about how he got the exclusive with Carl Pye with the unveiling of the OnePlus Nord. So I'm curious to get John's thoughts. Like, I've been talking about this for a while now, but there's this unannounced war between real tech journalists and tech YouTubers and things like that. But the tech journalists just hate YouTubers. At least from my lens, it just seems like they hate YouTubers. They hate that YouTubers get press coverage. So, some of them were just gritting their teeth when they saw Marquez got this exclusive with Carl Pye. So I'm interested to get John's thoughts on all this because you're closer to it than any of us probably. So
just to frame my perspective, I fought a lawsuit for 2 years to be qualified as a journalist, and so that I could fall under federal state shield laws and, of course, like the Second Amendment. When I ran Techno Buffalo. So I still have that mindset. But I would imagine, with maybe the being very direct, the taxi industry hating Uber drivers.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, right? They're taking our jobs. They're doing what we do, but maybe in our minds, not as well. Why are people going there? What Marquez does and what a lot of YouTubers do is disseminate information, right? You're giving information, whether people choose to get it from a Wall Street Journal, New York Times, or on YouTube. You're giving information. And the reality is more people are watching a single Marquez video than are watching a flagship TV show on NBC Thursday night at 8 p.m.
Yeah, or reading anything that's published on any blog or in any physical piece of media.
Anytime. I would imagine more people watch Marquez videos in 1 week than subscribe to something like the Wall Street Journal. And I'm not belittling traditional journalism. I think it is an incredible career and it has its role. Yeah. But put these two head to head is ridiculous. They're different. It's just another way to get information. People can choose where to get it from. If I was OnePlus, if I was Carl Pei and I said, I want more people to know about our phones, am I going to be like, well, the more appropriate way would be to have an article written and featured in the Wall Street Journal with some dots coloring on my face? Or am I going to get this blasted out the next day to 3.5 million people?
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer decision. And to fight against that, I think it's being on the wrong side of history. Journalism has its place. So does the YouTube and the video side.
Well, so I have a couple of family members that have been looking at getting Teslas, like whatever. And they, at first, they were watching official Tesla videos, and then a couple like CNN, CNBC. Yeah. But for the most part, I've been forwarding, and I think they're subscribers of yours now, your Tesla videos.
Thank
because it speaks to them more like as the everyday person, and like I've told them like I know John personally, and like this guy does his research and like that, and they've been watching your videos more than anything now. And it's kind of cool to kind of see that transition from them waiting for the latest tech talk, whatever it is on CTV on Saturdays kind of thing, or CTV is a thing here in Canada, to waiting for John to drop the next video.
No, first of all, thank you for that. When I see Marquez interview Elon or interview Bill Gates or get the exclusive on the Nord, I'm clapping my hands. Like that's raising the tide, right? All ships go up when that happens. So Terrence is saying the Wall Street Journal has a circulation of little over 2.8 million in their entire circulation. That's probably print, not online. Marquez's videos generally get over 2.8 million, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody who reads, the Wall Street Journal is going to read every single article, right?
Right.
And Renee's saying The Verge had a lot of Google exclusives and other bloggers got salty about that as well, right? If you don't get it, you're going to be salty. And that sucks. But good for Marquez. That dude worked his ass off.
Yeah.
I tried to hire Marquez like 9 years ago. He deserves every ounce of success he has, and people will always try to tear down those that are at the top.
Even the Buick video, which was a huge thing for a while, I thought that was amazing, and I thought it was amazingly done. We all thought it was amazingly done in terms of disclosure and that was a big part of the talk and everything like that. And like even that video was something like I could send to my parents because they like Buick, for example, right? Yeah. And it was just amazing to see those lines kind of blur and everything like that. That both different types of people could enjoy that kind of content.
Yeah, so it was interesting when he put out the Buick video because we had the conversation. I think he had, like, when his Tesla got hit and it was in the shop forever, Buick like lent him a car, and I remember just being like, what the heck?
I thought it was Audi.
Is that?
No, it's Acura.
Acura. Okay, yeah. And so, but when he was on Viper's podcast on Friday Night Viper, we asked him about it. He was like, well, I'd done something with them before, and so I had a relationship there already. When they saw that happened, they reached out to me. I mean, when you see somebody who has the profile that Marquez does doing all this stuff, it's really easy to just kind of like look at it and say everything is bought and sold, right? But when you actually talk to the person, and not everybody has this opportunity, but when you talk to the person and you know a little bit about how the business works, you understand like, oh, it's a relationship. I like, if my neighbor down the street works for Toyota. If my car, if I was in a car wreck, he might be able to hook me up with a good deal on like like renting a Toyota for a month. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. The scale is much larger. I mean, when Viper brought up Marquez, I thought he was going to bring up the fact that Marquez stole my video.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he did a really good job with that video. And I mean, not that he wouldn't, but
I think it kind of sucks that I almost feel like he felt like he had to, explain the relationships and this and that. And that was part of the conversation that we had on our podcast when the Buick thing happened and everything like that. And we had to explain, and Viper talked about on his show as well, about the difference between, a review and a first look and a hands-on. And here's the thing. So many people I think there was some definitely confusion from his audience because people are so used to seeing reviews from Marquez, where this was not. This was clearly a showcase and a look at the tech that's in there and everything like that. So when I saw that he came up with the video, first thing I thought was, isn't that Jason's thing? And the second thing was, I mean, I can't believe he kind of felt, I feel like he was almost backed into a corner where he had to kind of explain this without referring to that instance.
Yeah.
But the thing that I liked about it is, this is a conversation we've had amongst ourselves for years now. Mm-hmm. Like how, what are the ethics of how we do what we do? And, where are the gray areas and what are the tolerances for those gray areas and that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing the Can You Trust series in the first place, was to have that conversation, to just talk about, this is the way that this person does this thing. And it's beneficial in this way, or it's good in that way, and here are the places that as a viewer that you could be more aware of maybe their focus as opposed to somebody else's, et cetera, et cetera. So I think when somebody like Marquez comes on and says, here are the ethical standards that I operate under, and that I hope that resonates out and trickles down to the rest of the YouTube tech media, whatever, because there's something valuable there. One thing that I was always concerned about with tech YouTube as it started to grow was that a lot of people who do tech YouTube, like, they started in their bedrooms, which is what makes it really attractive. It's like, somebody talking to their friend about this, and that's why people want to watch these videos, why your family reacts to John's videos better than CNET's videos or whatever. But at a certain point, when it becomes bigger and these people haven't done the journalism thing, so they don't really know like how to source things and whether or not it matters to source things and how to couch things and explain things so that you're not giving people false innuendo or ideas. That was worrisome to me because I didn't want tech YouTube to kind of eat itself and become a joke, right? Mm-hmm. So when Marquez comes out and says these are the ethics that I have about how I cover what I cover, when I've been paid, what I'll be paid for. I mean, there'll be the people who don't believe it, but I think for the majority of everybody else will be like, okay, I understand that. I appreciate that. And now I've got a little bit of a lens. So yeah, maybe I don't know if he felt backed into a corner to do it or not, but he did an incredibly good job of just kind of explaining what a reviewer does and how, and the various sort of nuances between all those things. So I appreciated it for that.
Yeah, I as somebody who does a lot of sponsored stuff, I agree. I had done a video years ago where I sort of laid out what I do and won't do, and sort of always make a point to say I use this device for X amount of days before a review, and
right.
To sort of pull back the curtain a little bit, and I won't mention any names on this, but I've been at events where we've all gotten devices at the same time, big publications, big YouTubers, and I'll see a video go up the next day that says review. It was like, I use this device for 6 days. I was like, I saw you get that device in your hand 24 hours ago.
Right.
And so there's a lot of, I think, natural distrust from the audience. And I think, quite frankly, there's also a little bit of jealousy that goes into watching some of these things. I think the beauty of what we do, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole or conceited, is that people look at it and say, I can do that. Right. Why aren't I doing that? And I think that's why Marquez got a lot of pushback. I mean, the dude had so much disclosure all over his video.
It's in the first 18 seconds.
I mean,
yeah.
And then it kept popping up throughout the video.
Yeah, exactly.
And somebody like Marquez, who I've had the privilege of knowing personally, and is about above board, high ethics guy as you can have. I thought that the blowback wasn't a knock on him. It was more of a microcosm of how people view the industry. It was interesting. And I felt how he responded was interesting. You know, there was another video that went up the next day, right? I think it was like a PS5 video or something, some video that went up, immediately the next day. And that was interesting, but also explaining how he does things. I found fascinating. I think it's good for us and it's good for the industry for people to know that. And it's also good to call people out, right? Who are not disclosing sponsorships. And I don't know if if Zach in Canada, if your FTC regulations or your version of FTC regulations are the same.
They're very similar. But because the majority of my audience is watching US, I'm going to fall under those guidelines. And also from a moral and ethics standpoint, that's my everything's pretty much in the same. Yeah, it's in the same line as Marquez. In fact, Travis MCP, right? He did a video, I think it was 2 years ago now, talking about his moral compass and this and that. And then we got into a conversation, and that's when I made a video talking about, no, I won't take money for reviews. Yes, I'll disclose relationships. Yes, I'll disclose sponsorship. And that video is linked in every single one of my in every single one of my videos. And every time I'm contacted by a company, depending on what it is, I say, hey, have a look at this, just where I stand. Right. So but yeah, to answer your question, the rules up here are very similar, especially since the majority of my viewing audience is the United States, right?
Yeah. But I think for the audience, you have an obligation, right? If you see somebody doing a review that's called a review that is sponsored, I think you have a right as an audience to call that out.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine line between a showcase and a review. I think integrations where you talk about a product inside of another video or something different. But I think the audience has to call out the creators too to keep us honest.
Yeah. And honestly, I think there's a portion of the audience is not always going to know, because there's all kinds of different variations of how people approach making money doing this thing. But at the end of the day, like, there are people who run their business this way. It's like, oh, you want me to feature your product? Well then, it costs this much money to get to the front of the line, and whether or not they call that a review or whatever they call it, like, that's how they run their business.
How many times have you guys been asked in an email, for example, how come so-and-so is charging this much? How come you're charging? I get that all the time. And it's all I can really answer back is, this is how I run my business. Right? This is how I run my channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no, I hate being asked for rate cards. I hate that. Let's design something that works for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been, for the past year and a half now, sort of going through somebody else, which is both good and bad, because nobody else cares more about your business than you do. But at the same time, like, it's nice to have that intermediary that can advocate for you in a slightly different way. So it's an experiment. But I know, John, you've been here with us now for an extra half hour-ish, and we really appreciate it. You've been totally awesome.
No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Listen, I would love it. Thank you guys for adjusting the time to accommodate us as West Coasters here. But I appreciate it. I have a lot of respect for all you guys on how you conduct yourself. I think you guys go about getting yourself noticed in the right way, respectfully, and you guys deserve every ounce of success you've had and success that's coming your way.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Hey, John, if you see that PS5 pre-order button, you let me know, baby. Let me know.
I'm immediately, Mike, I promise.
Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed to John on YouTube or anything like that, one of our moderators has put the links. The
I'm gonna say, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, we just assume, but the links are in the chat right now. Go ahead and go over and check out some of his stuff. I recommend that the history of Apple video that you did. That thing was fantastic.
Incredible.
I appreciate. We have a new one coming up. I think it's going to be a little saucy.
Okay.
Coming up soon.
Awesome. Well, heard it here first.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. See you again soon, man.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And then there are 3.
And here we are, back. It's the 3 of us. That was fun. That was awesome.
At the peak, I saw 145. We're at 125 right now. We appreciate all of you here. And if you're listening on audio, I mean, join the live show on Tuesdays.
Yeah, because that's where all the action happens. I mean, well, no, I mean the audio version's good too.
Get your question in, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always a good opportunity to have your question come up and get answered if you don't have that if you're listening to the taped version. That's just the way it is.
And we are working on more guests. We're going to try to do 2, maybe 3 guests a month kind of thing. They could be other creators, things like that, people in the space. There's a really good guy. We think, I'm not going to mention the name, but we're so close to getting him. He's so busy right now. This is the kind of guy that pumps out like 2 or 3 videos a day. And plus he also live streams at night. And he's just as angry and crotchety like Jason. So that's your hint. Yeah. Yeah. It will be interesting. I've been watching this guy for quite a while. We're not going to name names. At this point, it's inappropriate because it's not settled. But yeah, and there are people that we've had on the podcast like a couple of years ago that are due for a return. Mr. Mobile is somebody that we've talked about. I'll hunt him down, and Justine. Maybe we can get Marquez over here. Love to get John.
Yeah. So Jay Will would be great. Jay Williams would be great. So yeah, I really like this forum. Oh, when it's the 3 of us talking back and forth with the audience, it's really great. But then to mix it up once or twice a month is a different vibe. Gives you a little bit of a different way to have the discussion. So I enjoyed it. I
have a question.
Okay.
Because I don't get to talk to you guys on the stream only but once a week. So I have a question for both of you here. So I was watching the Saturday Night Tech Fight this past weekend, and there was an interesting question on that I want to pose to you all.
Okay.
Let me see if I can remember what the question was. I think it was something to the extent of, would a touchscreen MacBook eliminate the need for the iPad?
No.
That is the correct answer, but I would love to hear you guys' explanation.
Well, go ahead, Zach.
I'm just going to say really quick, just from a price standpoint, because of the basically, if you look at the starting price point of like the cheapest iPad, for example, and you can tack on a keyboard on there, it's still going to work out to be relatively close to maybe the quote unquote cheapest 13-inch, for example, right? So, and in terms of portability, people still want something that's maybe just as portable. That's the way I look at it. So I would say no. Yeah.
See, I think about it from the use case window, whereas like the iPad has carved out a space for itself where, I mean, yes, it's a media consumption device, but for a lot of people, it's also become a professional device that they use for video editing or art or any of those kinds of things. And I mean, unless the MacBook changes its entire, like the whole, Yoga 360 phase of PC laptops is kind of fading a little bit. So I don't think we want one device that like can twist itself into 100 things. I think it's better to have each device do something really well. And the MacBook Pro is a really solid device when it comes to just the traditional kind of work that people do, whether it's like light productivity or heavy creative or whatever it is. That form factor works. And I don't necessarily ever feel the need to like touch the screen. Yeah, because that's just how it is. Now, maybe, but I don't see Apple. Apple doesn't like to blur the lines. They don't like the paint they don't like the colors to touch. You know, for one thing, it's good for their business because they are able to keep people buying stuff in the ecosystem. It's like if you had a MacBook Pro that could be an iPad, then you wouldn't buy an iPad, and then that's not good for Apple.
What about you, Viper? What's your? I mean, I'm pretty sure we already know what your stance is, but
no. First of all, the iPad is a much more versatile device than a MacBook. It's more portable.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, the MacBook comes attached with a keyboard. The iPad does not, but you can attach a keyboard to an iPad. And the other thing that they didn't really talk about on that tech flight was that I don't think any MacBooks with LTE chips in them.
No, that's true. I mean, I think, was it yesterday or the day before, we got a look at our first 5G laptop.
Mm-hmm.
But the MacBook, I think what's difficult for a lot of people to understand is like the significant difference between the MacBook Air and the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I mean, there's a huge difference. I mean, the price reflects that, but what you can do with them is, basically you're buying the MacBook Air for that lightness, that portability, that kind of bring it around, still have the classic design of a laptop. I think the lines between MacBook Air and iPad are starting to blur. I ended up keeping the iPad keyboard, and adjusting to it and using it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did, and I mean, it is a flawed but elegant solution to a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know why it doesn't have a function roll. I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't have a home button. I don't know. There are lots of things, but at the same time, like it is better than. See, this is what Apple does. It's better than the competitors. The competitors might be more functional, but it's more elegant. Yeah. It fits into the whole ecosystem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah. I have a keyboard for mine. I have the Pro from 2018, and I barely ever use the keyboard, but it's a glorified watching movies and doing thumbnails and editing photos. But it's nice to have that versatility, and like you said,
yeah,
with attaching or not attaching the keyboard, right? So,
Jason, you know that even though it doesn't have a home button on the actual keyboard, the 3-finger swipe gesture upward takes you home from any app in the yeah.
I know.
Don't wait for him, Jason. You just said it doesn't have a home function, and it does have a home function.
Well, okay, so fair enough. I have to admit that I rarely use the touchpad on that keyboard.
What?
Yeah.
Why do you have it? Really? Yeah, what are you doing over there?
So it's either he doesn't know or whatever. So, for example, I just discovered that the watch has Force Touch. I didn't know that this thing had Force Touch. I had no idea, which, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, yeah, Command H, thank you. I know that one too. I'm just saying, I like it when third party companies put the little thing that it's a button and it goes back to the home screen. I like that.
I'm gonna call Renee for now on for tech support.
Yeah. Well, that's I realized after a long time that a lot of people don't use keyboard shortcuts. Like I've been using keyboard shortcuts forever, but a lot of people don't, like my wife doesn't use keyboard shortcuts. I'm like, why don't you just do the Command S instead of going to the file and bringing down the save and all that? But everybody's got their little foibles about tech. However, I have this dream of having one device. It's a dream that I've been grasping at for years and frustrating my viewership for years over. But I would love to have one device that I could take with me and do my like writing and more light computing type stuff. And it was a great experience to do that. But then also do my music, my video editing, my gaming, my live streaming.
You can do that with the iPad Pro.
Well, not at the level at which I would prefer to do it.
Oh.
So a little spoiler, little extra information for the people in the audience. I have tomorrow coming to my doorstep a Razer Blade 17 Pro.
That's a beast.
And it is my hope that it can be that device. I've tried this before. And people are always like, "Hey, just get back to back."
You know what I'm gonna tell you, Jason. You know what I'm gonna tell you.
I tell you what though, I'm a Mac, I'm an Apple sheep, whatever you want to say, but I so desperately want there to be an option, another thing that's as good.
Look at all the ports that are on this thing. Holy cow!
Yeah, it's got ports. It's got a Thunderbolt 3. It's got a USB-C. It's got a HDMI. It's got an SD card reader. It's crazy. I spent an ungodly amount of money on it, but
I'm looking at the price right now.
Yeah, I spent a crazy amount of money on it. I didn't buy the top of the line. I bought like the next one down, so I didn't get the 4K screen. I really wanted the 4K screen, but anyway, that's coming tomorrow. I'm going to do a series of videos on it. I've already got like more RAM, more storage sitting here waiting to go into it. So I'm going to do a whole series on me using that device.
What's the weight of this thing? Do you know?
I think it's like 5 pounds, maybe 4 point something.
At a 17-inch? That's wow. Okay.
It's thin.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, it's like Apple's dream, or at least the way that they do it, is to have one device for each segment of your digital experience, right? And so you end up having 5 devices. But could there be just one?
Okay, so you said you didn't get the 4K, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's only one 4K model. There's 4 different FHD models here. Which one did you get? Or do we have to wait for the video?
No, I'll tell you. I got the full HD 300 hertz with the 2080 Max Q Super Max Q.
Dude, that thing is 4,500 Canadian. That's got that must have been 3,800.
It was 3,200 US. Ooh. Yeah.
Oh my god.
The 4K version was 3,800, and I couldn't really see spending an extra like $600 on a 4K screen. Wow. As much as I wanted to, I was like, I can't. And so I've tried this before, but with like lesser expensive devices and that kind of thing. So now I figured I just go like whatever I would spend on a MacBook Pro if I could get everything on a MacBook Pro that I wanted. Well, no, actually that would cost like $6,000, but still.
How does this only have 16 gigabytes of RAM? I thought there'd be at least 32 in here.
So Razer has started not providing upgrades for you, because basically it comes with 16 base, and then you can buy 32 or whatever and replace it yourself.
They make it easy to upgrade then? Or
yeah.
Pop things in? Yeah.
Yeah, so you need a Torx 5 screwdriver, I think, to get like, I think they're 10 or 12 screws. Pop those off, and then you can just pop out the RAM like you would any normal computer. And then there's also an extra M.2 NVMe slot, so you can put a second hard drive in. And you can also change the Wi-Fi card, but why you would want to do that, I don't know. Some people are snooty about their Wi-Fi cards.
This is sexy though. I'm looking at the marketing pictures, but damn.
Yeah, I bought the cheapest Razer Blade last year, like it was an open box at Best Buy.
Yeah, I remember.
And I really liked it, but there were certain things that really ticked me off. One of them was that for some reason the up arrow was in between the / and the shift button.
Yeah,
on the right-hand side.
Little things would tick me off like that too.
And so I was always doing like / like I was always doing like up and then putting a / in the line above. It was just really annoying. There were little things like that.
How are the fonts?
I think, well, that is actually a really good question.
Okay, oh, here we go.
That is actually a really good question, because I really am kind of snooty about the crispness of text. That's one reason I wanted to go for the 4K.
Okay.
But if text is soft on the screen, then it really, really, really bothers me.
Are you going to be using this with another monitor or just exclusively just this?
I'm going to be using it in conjunction with several monitors because I've got this setup. I just finished this setup. I've just rearranged and redone my streaming / filming setup. Mm-hmm. And then I've got that setup back there that's like the music setup.
Okay. So that makes sense why you wouldn't get the 4K screen, because if you're using a conjunction with other screens, there's no point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for it. And as much as I've been an Apple sheep for these many years, I want somebody. I want a challenger. I want somebody who's like, oh yeah, and basically, I mean, the Razer Blade line is like the Windows version of a MacBook Pro in black, right? And cool. I like black. Black is my color, so it's all good. But
so are you gonna be editing on this too, like video editing?
Yeah.
So you're gonna so you could be going Premiere, obviously, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Renee says you could buy the EOS R5 for that.
Yep.
And barbecue some. Yeah. So that's I've been watching all this stuff about these new cameras, and I'm just like, you guys are babies. What are you talking about? Just like you've got a $3,000 camera and you're complaining about what? I don't know. It's weird. I keep thinking I want to go get a better camera. I've got the A6400 right now. That's my main camera. Mm-hmm. And I keep thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get a better camera. But then I decided not to. I was gonna get the Canon 90D. Because the 90D can do like the clean HDMI output. It can shoot in 4K. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, well, arguably, like, how much better could it be? Like, I want to get better at this camera before I spend another $3,000 or $4,000 on a camera.
What lens are you currently using on that camera?
The 16 millimeter Sigma with the f.4. Yeah.
1.4. Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to go up to 4K. I'm going to start. So that's part of the test for the laptop.
Editing 4K.
In
Premiere with 16 gigabytes of RAM.
I've got 32. I'm upgrading to 32. So
okay. I feel compelled to tell you that no matter how shiny your new Razer hardware is, you are still using Windows 10 with Adobe Premiere Pro.
I prefer Pro. I prefer Adobe Premiere Pro.
Oh, I know you prefer it, but we have the conversation on a yearly basis.
I know.
And you end up coming back to Mac and Final Cut because you understand what I know.
It's faster. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's faster. It's easier.
About this, were we not just on a collaboration about this?
I'm on the same wavelength with Viper. I just enjoy seeing Jason's head explode in videos.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it might be a total failure again. But the thing is, like, I keep hearing all these things like, oh, now. So one thing that's happened since the last time I tried it is NVENC encoding on the GPU is like a real thing now. It happens. So like you can do all of your rendering and such using the RAM that's on the GPU and not taxing the CPU. So there's stuff that's changed that could make this as faster than the Mac counterpart. But it remains to be seen. DePost likes DaVinci. I downloaded DaVinci and I was like, I put footage in there and I was like, what do I do now?
So you and Sarah DC, man. You and Sarah, y'all just hardcore stubborn about this. I remember she tweeted something yesterday about trying to borrow somebody 2020 i9 MacBook Pro because I guess she had a project to do. Yeah. But she refused to. I would have figured with how she moved out, she would have one, but apparently she does not have one. she just refusing to put the money down for the MacBook. And I'm just thinking to myself, you just like pain, don't you? You like pain. you know that the Mac works better. Hell, you made a video with Marquez 3 years ago, and he just beat you around the block with how fast the MacBook was, but you still refuse to use the MacBook.
Like, see, that's the thing. The race is still on. Like,
Jason,
over.
Jason, if you're going to 4K, like, why don't you try, like, because Jonathan Morrison showed this with the iPad Pro. Why don't you, LumaFusion 4K onto the iPad, and then you've got this nice, convenient that you like typing on, and you could do your videos because you don't do a bunch of fancy, it's just you in your head, right?
That gas on there.
I can do like one of the things. Now, I started using Final Cut coming from iMovie. I never like took a class on Final Cut. I never, and I've used Logic for years.
Mm-hmm.
They're somewhat similar, but I don't know what I'm doing in Logic. However, or in Final Cut. However, I've used the Adobe Suite professionally. Quote, I'm not a great like designer or anything, but I've used it professionally for most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
So Premiere Pro acts like other Adobe software. So I know what to expect when I go to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I hope is that the improvements that have been made in coding and other things, because like right now I'm on a Windows computer, and I this thing is a beast. 64 gigabytes of storage. I mean, or of 64 gigabytes of RAM, i9 9700K, blah blah blah,
mm-hmm.
RTX 2080. So I love. So it's sort of the same thing as like Android versus Apple. I love the customizability, and I love like the geekiness of getting under the hood
mm-hmm.
of this stuff. But I also like the elegance of the Mac.
Mm.
The elegance of how the Apple ecosystem works. Those are the two things that attract me to both sides. So we'll see. And Michael Pepper is right. Razer does not put bloatware on their laptops, which is a terrible thing when you buy Windows laptops. It's a terrible thing. Mm. Now you do get like the Microsoft bloat, like Minecraft and Candy Crush and a couple of other things. But yeah, a lot of times when you buy a PC laptop, that PC laptop is like already crippled because of all the crap that gets put on it.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing to do when you buy a new PC laptop is just like reinstall Windows.
All right.
So
I got a question for all the people in the chat, and maybe I don't know if you you Jason or you Zach would know this, but when the Canon EOS R5 and R6 was announced a few days ago, there was a term that kept popping up, and I don't know what the hell it means. What the hell is a cripple hammer? Does anybody know what that means? Wait, what is that?
I don't understand it. I don't understand what people are talking about. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't followed. I'll be honest and say that I haven't followed it super closely, but I mean, is it like sort of like the band hammer, where like because Canon always cripples their cameras by leaving some feature out, right? So like their less expensive cameras won't have this, that, or the other thing that the more expensive cameras have. Yeah, so that's Renee's saying the same thing. People think that Canon deliberately leaves out features from some cameras, so you have to buy the next one up.
Mm.
So I don't know. I mean, especially for me with cameras, like I know there's so much that I don't know or do well with cameras that like I don't even know if I could argue that I deserve like $5,000 worth of camera. Like I need to get better at making really good looking stuff and really know what I'm doing with the really good camera that I have now. So that's kind of my thing. I mean, I know this sounds bizarre. But because I just spent $3,200 on a laptop. But yeah, I believe in using what you have and becoming really, really accomplished with that.
Do you recall the last couple of weeks how it was shortly after Viper kidnapped Jonathan Morrison and went all Boca on us here? But do you guys recall how I found that lens and then I was kind of doing the same sort of thing? I decided to take that lens for the G7 here, and and now I'm doing a bunch of product photos and things like that, and things with my slider that I bought like a couple years ago that I haven't really used to do these new B-roll shots. And I put the lens I had up here for the longest time and back to the settings that I had. So again, going back, like you said, using what I have. Right. And I've been really happy with the results that way. So
I mean, but there's always something you said for making a jump, like what Viper's got going on with his buttery smooth bokeh and all that stuff right now. I mean, that's the kind of thing that only money can get you. So you can spend money to really be able to get those things, or at least to be able to get them more easily.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you spend $1,000 on a lens, that lens is going to be easier to use. It's the same thing with if you spend $500 on a guitar, it's going to be okay, but it's not going to play as well as the $3,000 guitar.
Yeah,
the $3,000 guitar is easier to play because it's better made.
Our friend T Devane, technically T, had a really good hot take today on Twitter. I thought it was completely accurate. If your content was crappy, I think I might be paraphrasing, but basically it was like, if your content was crappy before, just because you get one of these new Canons does not mean it's going to be better. It's just going to look like a better crappy. Wasn't that what you said, Viper? That's basically it, right?
I'm gonna admit that one, but probably, yeah.
Yeah.
The only way that I could see buying better gear making you better is that the better gear is more capable, so it's more forgiving. Okay, so there's that, but it's not going to fix the content of your video. It might look better. It might be easier to use. You might be able to do more and be more successful with it in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
But like the content of the video is what ultimately keeps people watching the video. Nobody cares. I mean, I've done this 100 times. I'll like put in tons of B-roll and just be like, I'm editing, man, look at me. I got this stuff in here. And people will be like, that stuff's annoying me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. Here's a video with no B-roll whatsoever, and it's more successful than like the last 10 videos that I put out.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what Zach was asking you earlier, because you kind of glossed over it, Jason.
Okay.
So have you ever thought about editing on your iPad with LumaFusion?
I have edited a couple of videos on the iPad.
You have? Okay.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like using crayons to make a painting. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I know there's some people who love it. They're like, oh my God, this is great. But yeah, it's like using crayons. I just really didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
Going back to the point you're making about, better equipment, better content, and doesn't also always necessarily mean that. JD Tech and I, we had a really good conversation both online and offline about how if people treat their new equipment, so they get a new camera, a new lens, whatever, and then they learn how to use that and make things better or visually or whatever it is, then that's a win, right? But there are a segment of creators out there, or people that are getting into this, or even people that are thinking about getting into this, that think, okay, I can't make YouTube videos, or I can't do this until I get this, or until I have that, right? And that's unfortunate. I mean, if you look at our friend El Jefe, the dude used the rear part of the Galaxy. I think it was Galaxy S8, the rear camera, with a mirror, and I would have never been able to tell watching his content back then.
Well, and it's also because I mean, he's just really good at making his videos, and he took the situation that he was in, and he really learned how to use that gear and solved problems that were inherent in using that gear, right? I mean, ultimately, one thing you were saying that makes me like, if people spent as much time and effort planning their content, writing their scripts, thinking about what they're doing, all that kind of stuff, as they did like shopping for and buying new gear, then their content would be infinitely better without the gear.
True.
People want the instant thing to make them better. But unfortunately, like Roberto has always said, and we've talked about before, you've got to make those 100 shitty videos. At the end of the day, you got to make 100 shitty videos, and then probably a few hundred more after that, before you really have any idea what you're doing.
Nope.
And it's the same way in any sort of. It doesn't matter if it's creative. It doesn't matter if you're a woodworker. It doesn't matter, cabinet maker, whatever. you've got to be bad to get good. And people want to buy their way out of that equation. But after a certain point, you can't do it. You know? Like, you could have $10,000 of camera gear, but if you don't know how to set your f-stop, if you don't know how to set your ISO, if you don't know any of that stuff, then it's gonna look a little bit better than the crap it would have if you had just used your phone. I mean, Michael Fisher made a video using the camera from the iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the point was, nobody could really tell. Nobody could really tell. And that to me is, there's a minimum threshold. Like, I don't think I could make a really compelling, interesting video that people would want to watch on like the MacBook webcam. Because that thing is like crippled just by how it exists. It's a 720p webcam that looks like you just licked your screen before you turned on the camera. It's ugly. So there's that minimum threshold. But once you get a good piece of gear, like the Canon SL2, Canon SL3, or the M50, those are $300 cameras with a kit lens. And I tell you what, you can do damage with those.
Hey, Jay.
People are talking. Just one more thing. People are talking about the Sony Z, whatever it is, as the perfect vlogging camera. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't sleep on the Canon M50 as being everything that you need to be successful on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Jason, what did you say about the MacBook camera? The MacBook Pro camera?
It looks like you just licked the lens before you started shooting your video.
Oh, shot fired! Shot fired on the podcast!
He's wanted to press that all night.
Yeah, he's been waiting.
Ooh, baby. Woo!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Renee's right though. Michael Fisher could actually shoot with a potato, and make a good video. Like, he just carve out something that looked like a camera from a potato, and there you go. But you know, he's that good, and you know why he's that good? 2 reasons. He believes in being good, and he's made it his mission to be good at what he does, and he's put in the work. Those are the things. You know, put yourself in a position to be the best thing that you could possibly be, and then do the work. It's the doing the work part is the hardest thing. Like, ass in chair. Like, that's what, you know, one of my favorite sayings about writing is, I write every day without hope or despair. You know, I put my ass in the chair and I do the work. And when things aren't going well, or when you feel like the struggle is too big or whatever, it's, you know, a lot of it's mental. A lot of people think, oh, I have to have this, I have to have that, I have to have this, I have to have that in order to be able to do it. When the truth of the matter is, like, you could do it with your phone, but putting those barriers out there, those barriers of entry out in front of you, means you don't have to try yet. So, I mean, some people go and do it with whatever, and they learn what they're doing. But yeah, I 99% of all of this stuff, like we were talking about, you know, the channel's going well, the channel's not going well, you know, all that kind of stuff. 99% mental. You know, it's you inside your head, you know, just like scratching at the walls. And sometimes you have to go through that. Sometimes it feels like it's easy. Sometimes you feel like, I never want to do this again.
Jason, dime out here.
Here's the thing. 100% of everybody who quits doesn't succeed. If you want, 100% of everybody that quits doesn't succeed. So don't quit. That is ultimately like the best advice that I could give anybody who says, I want to be a creative person, I want to do this, that, or the other thing. Don't quit. Steve Freeman knows what I'm talking about. Steve Freeman knows about not quitting. Steve's a songwriter, producer. He's badass.
I posted a quote on Twitter a couple of nights ago that said the difference between success and failure is choice. And like Jason said, are you going to choose to quit, or do you choose to keep going until you succeed?
And the human brain is so good at justifying whatever decision you make, for whatever reasons you make it. If I decided to quit tomorrow, I could make up 10 things like, it was this, the channel, the blah blah blah, about what I didn't want to do it anymore. But the truth of the matter is, the people who succeed don't quit.
There you go.
And that is the barrier. That is the barrier to entry to success. Because success is I've been through this enough in enough different venues to know that whatever barrier you think is, whatever line in the sand you think is the one that will say that you're successful, is not the line. Like, that line moves all the time. So if you want to be successful, don't quit. I mean, and just live the life. It is about being a creative person is a life skill. It is something that not everybody can do. So I went to the grad school that I went to is the #1 best graduate program for writing in the world. It's the oldest. It's the best. It's produced like 35 Pulitzer Prize winners. It takes like 25 people out of 10,000 applicants a year. So everybody in my graduate program was good at writing. Mm-hmm. Not everybody at my graduate program had the temperament, the demeanor, the drive, the stubbornness to not quit and find the other thing. And there's not, I'm saying this like it's a bad thing. If you can be happy doing anything other than smashing your face against the wall with this creative stuff, if you can be happy as an accountant, do that. Don't do this, because there's no upside to making yourself miserable all the time, unless you're being driven by something that is more than if you can do anything else than be a creative person and be happy, do that. I'm stealing that from a teacher of mine. And Steve says, I almost gave up and quit in 2011, wrote my first #1 song, and produced my first platinum selling album in January of 2012. There's something about reaching the breaking point that fuels you. That's absolutely right, man. Every time you feel yourself in that place where it's like, I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. I can't do it. If you don't quit, then you find that next gear, and you keep going, and you're better than you were before you went through that. So Bob asks if my book. So for those of you who don't know, I have a novel called The 14th Colony, available on Amazon. You can find it. Links in the description.
I've read it 3 times. I've read it 3 times. It's back there.
Zach has read it 3 times. I don't know why, but
it's dark. It's dark. It's good. It's good. Good.
It is pretty dark. I wrote my novel. I finished the first draft of my novel while I was in grad school, but I also wrote about, I think, 15 or 20 short stories. So my master's project, my dissertation project, is that collection of short stories and not the book. It took me 6 more years to finish the book after I graduated from grad school. So, yeah. I wrote every day. Well, with maybe Christmas or the odd bad day, whatever. But my goal was to write every day, and I did it for 8 years straight. And before that, I wrote in what I called, if you've ever, I think I've talked about this before, a book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. She had this thing, it's called Morning Pages. You get a composition notebook, you write 3 longhand pages in there every morning before you do anything else. I did that for 8 years as well. Some of them before the 8 years where I sat down at the computer and wrote, and then some of them in between. And then I quit doing that because I was doing so much writing. And I only do this because I only do these things because it's something that I can't not do. I mean, you know, the old Einstein quote, like trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. A lot of times for people who are trying to live that creative life, they're trying to get the wrong thing. That's the insanity. They're going after the wrong part of it. But I mean, there is some insanity to it as well.
Yeah.
So 504, I'd rather be a failure at something I love than a success at something I hate. Absolutely. George Burns, man. I haven't seen a George Burns reference for
That's
quite
a good quote. That's a good
yeah.
quote.
But that's the thing. I mean, you know, a lot of people feel like the expectation is to recreate a certain pattern, right? And the steps needed to take to fulfill that goal are right there in front of you, you know. But people wake up. I mean, I'm 48 years old. I know what it feels like to wake up at 40 and be like, have I done what I'm supposed to, or did I fuck it all up? And I mean, I was glad for myself that I could answer that, but I'm asking that same question to myself again now. But, you know, you can be super successful at things that don't take a lot of effort. You know? I mean,
we're painfully on in tech.
Anyway, yeah, I just went off on like 15, 20 minutes of philosophy. But this is another good quote.
You know what's interesting, though? We haven't lost a person in terms of who's here watching, listening. So people like this kind of stuff from you, Jason. Keep it going.
Renee's got a good quote here too. If you set your goals ridiculously high and it's a failure, you'll fail above everyone else's success. It's true.
Out here preaching tonight with it.
Flawless victory.
Do you have fatality on there as well?
No, but I will.
Oh yeah, you got to get the fatality in there, especially when somebody really drops the bomb or plaques somebody, you know, on Friday Night Viper. And when somebody gets plaqued on Friday Night Viper, you got to get the fatality in there.
Yeah, that's you.
I've got this.
which still just like triggers my anxiety.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, so you guys want to cover anything else tonight? It's been a good night.
No, I'm glad we had John on. I'm glad we kind of we touched on like everything. Seems like we talked about everything, and it was good. It was good. It was good having him on. So
yeah, everybody who's in there, everybody who's here, everybody who's been here, everybody who's listening after the fact. Thank you for being a part of this. I mean, sometimes it's easy to forget that there are people out there, like, and we're just people, you know.
people is people.
Like, it's really easy. Like, and I've been going through this. It's really easy to feel like totally isolated, and like your problems are your problems, and nobody else can help you. But the more that you talk to people and let yourself be vulnerable and put somebody out there, and just be a part of a community, the less that reality seems like it could be true. And you know, like, here's the straight up deal. I had a lot of fortune came to me on my YouTube channel, and I was really fortunate for a long time. I had a lot of people watching a lot of videos, got a lot of subscribers, and you know, it's slowed down. It's slowed down, and I've been trying to figure out why, right? I've been trying to figure out why, but the truth of the matter is, like, it is just what it is. I mean, it's you're never gonna win on that level 100% of the time, right? So, I mean, it seems like other people do, but no, I mean, it's not true. So I've been spending a lot of time just trying to like be a little bit more kind to myself and say, I do this work because this is what I do. And it doesn't matter if I gain 100 subs or lose 100 subs or whatever. I mean, I just keep going. I just have to keep going. And
just keep going.
Yeah.
I thought it was encouraging tonight how John talked about just like we've talked about before, that everybody had kind of a drop off in the algorithm, this and that. And so, I mean, you weren't the only one, Jason, right? So
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're alone in your space doing your thing and looking at the numbers and all that kind of stuff, it feels like you're alone.
It feels like,
But you're not. I mean, yes, some people are having some people will have fortune when your fortune is not in favor, right? It's just the way things are. You know, it's hard not to compare yourself. It's hard not to I know the channels that were having success at the same time my channel started to have success. So it's easy. It would be easy for me to look over there and be like, oh shit, I'm toast. Right. Yeah. And there are people who actually comment stuff like that. Like, hey, Jason, why don't people watch your videos anymore?
those are trolls. Hide, remove.
I know, but I mean, it's a good question because it's one that I have to ask myself. I've been asking myself. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, but Linda has a good question here, and I noticed that she asked it before, and I meant to answer it, so I'm gonna answer it now as the final thing that we do here tonight. Is it safe to update from Sierra to the latest version of Catalina? Yes. I didn't update to Catalina until like 2 or 3 months ago because I was afraid, like with all my audio gear, that it would break stuff. But it's been 100% smooth. It works really, really well. I don't know of anybody who's had major problems. So yeah, you're safe at this point.
I would just say, I would caution
Yeah.
to say if you have any specific monitors, like for example, I have this beautiful 32 ultra wide monitor. I went and checked to make sure there were proper drivers for it or that Apple was supporting it. I could not get a clear answer, so I'm still sticking with Sierra.
And the other thing is, if you have certain applications that you run that you need to work correctly, you might want to make sure that those are compatible with Catalina before you upgrade.
Yep.
Yeah, especially if you rely on older software that might be 32-bit. So I didn't lose too much when I transitioned over, but the 32-bit architecture is gone from Mac OS now. So if you use like an ancient program that's like integral to your workflow or something like that, do a little bit of Googling about the programs that you use most often. Make sure that they are stable, and by and large, most everybody's in good shape. But yeah, just do a little bit of Googling about the stuff that you use that's important to you on your machine.
And prepare for Victor.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Michael, the poets, everybody, Jermaine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for an awesome evening. Applause to all of you. And in the meantime, let's roll the music. So, man, Jon Rettinger, thank you so much for being here tonight. Viper, Zach. I mean, it's been a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. Everybody out there who's been listening, feel free to come on. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast version, come on Tuesdays, hang out with us. It's usually 8 p.m. Eastern time in the U.S. But yeah, man, I haven't gone this deep for a while, but it feels good. Anyway, this has been the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Until the next time, we are out.